Today we are going to take a first look at ESPConnect app, which takes ESP microcontroller management to a whole new level. When I first came across this tool, it completely blew my mind. Want to see why? Then stick around. So what is this ESPConnect tool everybody is buzzing about? It is a browser-based toolkit for managing ESP devices, and it has been around since 2025. There is no installation needed. You just take your microcontroller and connect it to the USB port and open this tool in a web browser. So what does it actually provide? First, it gives a comprehensive information about the microcontroller. We can see the device details, memory usage, flash status. You can even see the full partition table. It also shows you OTA status, which tells you how and where over-the-air updates are configured and used. Beyond that, it includes powerful file system tools. It supports SPIFs, LittleFS and FATFS, allowing you to upload, delete, edit and manage files directly through the drag-and-drop interface, making file system management much easier. It also provides firmware flashing tools, where you can upload firmware binaries, track flashing progress, and safely update the device with built-in safeguards. Finally, it includes serial monitor, which lets us view live logs from the device, review session history, and debug issues in real time. I will provide the link to the tool in the description below. Now, let's open it in the browser. So far there are no connected devices. Let's connect an ESP8266 and see whether we can retrieve all the information that was advertised. After physically connecting the USB cable, we need to select the correct serial port to establish communication. You can see the PC exchanging handshake with the microcontroller. As soon as the board is detected, ESPConnect automatically reads its hardware information. ESPConnect identifies the board as ESP8266EX with 4 MB of flash memory and 26 MHz crystal oscillator. It detects a Fudan microelectronics flash chip and confirms communication through the CP2102 USB to serial bridge operating at 921,600 baud. The feature set shows built-in Wi-Fi capability, while the peripherals section notes that ESP8266 does not include dedicated LEDC hardware and therefore uses software-based PWM generation. Within few seconds we get a clear overview of the board's hardware without having to dig through datasheets or board documentation. However, I noticed that not all information is actually available. If I click on the partition table, nothing is displayed. The same applies to the app section. Options like NVS Inspector, SPIFs tools, LittleFS tools and FATFS tools are also disabled. The flash tools section is available, so I assume we can erase or update the flash memory directly from this application. We'll take a closer look at that feature a bit later. What else do we have? There is also a serial monitor, but it's currently stopped. Let's start it. We immediately get a lot of output. It may look like nonsense at first, but that's normal. I don't remember which sketch I currently loaded on the board, so it's possible that the baud rate configured in the sketch does not match the default rate selected here. One important point, I often use a baud rate of 9600 in my sketches. That option does not appear to be available in ESPConnect, so it's something to keep in mind when designing code that relies on serial interface. Finally, we have a session log. This is your go-to window for troubleshooting. It records the entire handshake and data transfer process in real time, helping you quickly identify exactly where a connection might be failing. Let's disconnect this microcontroller and connect a different one. ESP32 is the most powerful chip in the ESP family, so maybe the information that was missing or unavailable on ESP8266 will now be visible here. As soon as the board is detected, ESPConnect correctly recognizes the microcontroller type. It shows a much more powerful setup. The board is identified as ESP32, specifically a revision 3 chip. It features 2 processor cores running at up to 240 MHz and 4 MB of flash memory. The crystal frequency is 40 MHz compared to the 26 MHz crystal used on ESP8266. The feature list is much larger. In addition to Wi-Fi support, the ESP includes Bluetooth connectivity, dual-core processing, and several additional hardware capabilities. ESP also provides details about the flash memory and USB to serial interface used to communicate with the device. The peripheral sections reports dedicated PWM hardware with 16 channels and 4 timers. Unlike the ESP8266, which relies on software-generated PWM, the ESP32 handles PWM entirely in hardware, making it more precise and efficient. And then we have links to the documentation. In one place you can find everything you could possibly want to know about this microcontroller and much more. Let's open the datasheet. You're looking at the 78-page comprehensive document, which is already impressive on its own. But then you open the technical reference manual and it's over 700 pages long. Honestly, it's one of those moments where your perspective changes. You quickly realize you're not just dealing with a simple microcontroller, but with a full-fledged, tiny computer packed into a single chip. Here I also found the guide for the ESP board family. I didn't even realize there were this many. Interestingly, the list is still incomplete. For example, it doesn't include the ESP32C3 OLED module I am using in this video, which I assume is a newer or less common variant. Let's have a quick coffee break. Sometimes you think you know a lot, and then you come across a tool like this, and you realize that there are people that are operating on a completely different level. It also reminds you how much there is still to learn. So I'm going to show my appreciations to the creators of ESPConnect. That coffee is well deserved. Now we can look at options that were not available for ESP8266. We get access to the partition table, which shows how the flash memory is actually organized. We can see reserved areas for the bootloader and the partition table itself, along with dedicated sections for NVS storage, OTA update data, and 2 separate application slots, up0 and up1, which allow firmware updates without overwriting the currently running version. There is also a SPIFs file system partition for storing files and a small core dump partition used for debugging crashes. So instead of just seeing 4 megabytes of flash, we now see exactly how the memory is divided and used in the system. In ESPConnect there is an apps tab that shows 2 application partitions, up0 and up1. These are 2 firmware storage slots defined in the partition table. When you upload a sketch from Arduino IDE over USB, it is typically written to the active application slot, usually up0. Only one slot is active at any time. Here we can see that it is up0. So why do we have 2 application slots, and what do the labels OTA0 and OTA1 mean? We use 2 application slots to support safe, over-the-air or OTA wireless firmware updates. If you're not familiar with over-the-air uploads, it may be a good time to check out this video of mine. OTA updates require that each sketch we load is capable of performing future OTA updates. If any upgrade breaks that functionality and there is no fallback, you could lose the ability to upload the device this way and effectively lock yourself out. To prevent this, we first load an OTA-ready sketch using the traditional method over USB via Arduino IDE. This initial upload typically goes to the default up0 slot as well. This enables OTA functionality on the microcontroller and creates the network interface required for wireless firmware uploads. During the next OTA update, the new firmware is written to the inactive slot while the device continues running the current version. After a successful update, the bootloader switches to the newly updated slot. If something goes wrong, the device can fall back to the previously working firmware. Let me show you a quick example. we'll use Arduino IDE to upload this OTA-enabled Hello World sketch to this ESP32C3 OLED microcontroller. This creates the network port through which I can continue uploading sketches, provided they all are OTA-enabled. After the upload is complete, let's inspect the apps tab in ESPConnect. As you can see, we are currently using OTA slot 0, which corresponds to apps 0. I am using a brand new microcontroller, and you can see that there isn't much information for app 1. That's because this microcontroller has never received an OTA update before. Now let's switch to another OTA ready sketch. I have one that displays the time on the OLED screen. Let's upload it over the air. To do that, we need to switch to the network port created by the initial OTA upload. Notice that the upload report looks different from the one we saw during the USB upload. Done. Let's check the status in ESPConnect again. You can see that the active slot is now OTA slot 1, which corresponds to app 1. The status of app 0 indicates that it previously contained the active firmware and is now serving as a fallback image. If your upload is interrupted, for example because of Wi-Fi issue, the microcontroller can revert to the previous OTA slot and continue running in a stable working state. This means the device remains operational and can still accept future OTA updates. It's fascinating to see how all this works behind the scenes. Let's connect back to our ESP32 microcontroller and go through remaining functionality provided by ESPConnect. Next you have NVS Inspector, which lets you view the content of the ESP32's non-volatile storage, where different types of persistent data are stored. This may include things like Wi-Fi credentials, blink tokens, API keys, and user-defined variables that your firmware may save over time. It survives resets and power loss. We can already see some existing entries, but these are present by default and were not added or maintained by me. In particular, you can see entries under this namespace, which is used by the system for Wi-Fi related data. This view is read-only, so the values can be inspected but not modified directly in ESPConnect. SPIF's SPI flash file system is a lightweight file system used on ESP microcontrollers to store files in flash memory. It is active here, but we won't have time to cover it in this video. It definitely calls for a follow-up. The same applies to LittleFS and FatFS. Right now they appear inactive here, just as they were on ESP8266. However, from what I found, when you upload the sketch that uses these file system libraries and enable file management functionality, these options become active in ESPConnect. At that point, you can use the tool to manage files directly on the device. Now let's look at the flash tools. Here you can download or erase the entire flash memory, and you can also download or erase individual partitions, or all of them. Any backups we create here can be restored from the flash firmware section. I will cover these options in detail in a follow-up video, but for now, let's do a quick demonstration of loading a new sketch onto the microcontroller. To be perfectly clear, ESPConnect cannot fully replace Arduino IDE. It is not possible to upload firmware using only source code. You still need to use the Arduino IDE to compile the sketch into a bin file, which you can then upload using ESPConnect. So why complicate things? Well, every time you upload a sketch from the Arduino IDE, it has to compile first, which can take a long time. If you have a stable version of your firmware, you can compile it into a bin file. Then, re-uploading it through ESPConnect takes only a few seconds. To do the demonstration, let's switch again to ESP32C3 where we did OTA uploads. Right now this ESP32C3 microcontroller is running my OTA-enabled clock sketch. Let's replace it with the OLED animation sketch that I created recently. I will open it in Arduino IDE, and instead of pressing the upload button, I will go to Sketch and then to Export Compiled Binary. This will take a while, so let's look at the sketch folder. Once the compilation is finished, you will see the bin file being created in that folder. Now let's upload it using ESPConnect. This firmware will be loaded into the APS0 slot, so we need to tell the microcontroller at which memory address the upload should begin. Otherwise, we could accidentally overwrite the bootloader, which would make the microcontroller inaccessible. We can check the correct offset here. There it is. Also, make sure that the Erase Entire Flash option is not checked. The upload takes only a few seconds. You won't see the sketch running immediately, but if you disconnect the microcontroller and connect it again, voila, the animation sketch is running perfectly. It's time to wrap up. Thanks for watching. I hope you were as impressed with this tool as I was. I plan to create 2 more videos on this subject. The first one will show real-life scenarios where ESP tool can be particularly useful, and the second one will take a closer look at NVS and file system types I mentioned in this video. When those videos become available, you will find the links to them here and here. As always, like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao!